Hello again. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of this 10-part series on preparation, participation, and integration. I'm Carlos Tanner from the Ayahuasca Foundation, and I really appreciate that you've made it this far. Maybe you're just jumping in, but hopefully you've made it this far to the 9th episode where we'll conclude our integration portion. We'll follow this with one last wrap-up, give an overview of the entire lessons and processes that I've described in my ideas and my approach to preparation, participation, and integration. The integration is obviously a very important part of this process, and some people would say the most important part. I have been emphasizing my perspective on it, which is definitely a consciousness-centric perspective. I am very focused on the awareness elements because I do feel like that is where we derive our inspiration and our motivation. And I've been talking about memories last time, about referential memory replacement as an example, and using our journal, which is a collection of those memories, to expand on memories that serve as influences or references for us and how we perceive and interpret our experiences and how we respond to those experiences. What it really comes down to is listening. Awareness can be described as listening. Now, obviously, listening is usually considered to be the realm of the ears, hearing, but I really mean listening in that sensingness, listening to what your heart is saying, listening to what your gut is saying, and listening to what your mind is saying, and listening to what nature is saying, listening to what the earth is saying, and listening to what other people are saying. Listening to me is a really great center of focus for this phase of the integration, and really in life. Almost all of the things I've been talking about don't just apply to attending a healing retreat or entering into an ayahuasca or psychedelic assisted therapy experience, but really just about life in general, which could be viewed as this never-ending journey of healing or unraveling and revealing the mysteries that can enlighten us or bring us into greater senses of realization, ultimately towards greater stages and levels of self-love. So listening to me is what I'd like to talk about in this episode, and also the journaling. In the last episode, I talked about the journaling as if it were the journaling from the past, which is what I was talking about. But now I want to continue that journaling in the integration process as well. And in that, I'm looking for my recognition of the change. And so I might want to be listening or aware of how my sensations, emotions, and thoughts are revealing the nature of my experiences. And then maybe like a journal entry could be, I was driving to work today and someone cut me off, and normally I would have gotten so angry, but this time I actually thought, oh, that person must be in a hurry. I hope that they, I hope everything's okay. And so I really noticed that I responded differently in a situation that had previously maybe triggered me or caused me to have a negative response. I noticed that there was a change in my response that signaled an improvement. And journaling those, even if there are these tiny little subtle changes, are really important because essentially you're confirming and solidifying the new referential memory, and you're solidifying the fact that a change has occurred, that there has been a shift in the trajectory, and working with that, confirming more and more, is really what that integration process is set to achieve, right? That's the goal of the integration process, is to solidify and to stabilize these changes such that they become the new reality for you. And that's really what that early concept about the story is. Your new reality is the new story. And the changing of referential memories is also changing the way that we write the story. We're rewriting the story. When someone says, tell me a little bit about yourself, you would always, refer to these memories of experiences that you feel or lend itself to explaining like who you are and how you've got to be this way. And when you rewrite your story, maybe those change. Maybe that story goes from I'm the kind of person who this to I was the kind of person who this until I changed, until I experienced this, until I realized this, until a shift happened in my trajectory. Or you might just leave that part out completely because it's no longer how you identify with yourself. So the rewriting of the story, I definitely feel like comes from those changes, and they do involve the memories that we reference. And when we're listening to ourselves, we bring ourselves into a greater awareness of, am I responding with my thoughts in a similar way, or is it different? Am I responding emotionally in a similar way than I used to, or is it different? Are there changes in the way that I'm noticing my sensations in a particular situation? Journaling those, noticing those, and then again, working to confirm and solidify those as the new operational model is really the goal of the integration process. So journaling, taking notes, and making sure that you're recognizing the changes that occur, even if they're very subtle. Remember, just a 1% change in trajectory over time will lead to a greatly different outcome or destination that you achieve. Returning to nature, big part of it. Nature will always be there for you. You would hopefully have someone to support you, a person, a friend, a confidant, a family member, someone that can support you and allow you to open up and allow your vulnerabilities to be present and to have that sharing of energy, and hopefully they would recognize the change as well, which is very confirming when someone says to you, you're different. There's something about you, or maybe they're very specific. You're actually, talking in a way that's very calm today. And so those are also confirmations. So that listening allows us to recognize and confirm and solidify the changes that have taken place such that they become a realized or real part of our story, and thus a real part of our identity and reality. In the end, you can only just do your best. So these are all tips, and I think that it's important to be aware of when you are maybe getting critical of yourself. Maybe you see that you responded the same as you used to. And maybe that leads to a frustration or an anger or of sadness or feel guilty or shame that you didn't change that part of you, or that's still the same. Well, at least recognize that energy, really recognize that. And one thing that I'd say often now to myself and to others is that there's no way that plant spirits want you to feel shame or to feel guilty or angry or sad. They don't want that. The plant spirits are like our greatest parents. They want us to shine in our greatest light. They want us to achieve our full potential, and they want us to live a satisfying life. So if you are noticing or something's coming into your awareness that a change isn't as full or isn't as complete or maybe didn't happen at all, at least recognize how you respond to that realization or that observation. Do I get down on myself? Do I insult myself? Do I become overly critical of myself? And is there an opportunity to change that response? And it's like a second layer of response where, We may have the initial response. Let's say the person cut us off in traffic, and then we find ourselves yelling in anger at them, overdoing it, and then we say, oh man, and here I am again, and now I'm responding to the observation of my response, if you can follow that. And so that also opens an opportunity. Can I be a little bit more forgiving of myself about a change that might not have fully crystallized? And in doing that, can I open the door for the opportunity to change that initial response as well? So I hope that makes sense. But there's kind of like the initial response, and then our observation of our own response, which then creates that secondary response. And that secondary response is sometimes as important, if not more, in allowing us to understand what's behind it, what energies might still be lingering there, such that we could follow a letting go process, like we talked about earlier, to let go of the resistance that we have to our authentic selves, or to the achieving of our self-love. So bottom line, you do the best that you can. That's the best you can do. And just try to listen, try to observe, try to continue your awareness, journaling the changes that you have noticed, allowing that vulnerability, having support from another person that might be able to also identify changes and slight shifts in the trajectory, such that you continue to confirm those changes, validate them, and realize them in the sense that you do make them real, and your story begins to change. You can rewrite the story, and you can rewrite your reality. And that's the integration process. In the end, the work that you do and the reward for the work that you do is not about what you get. It's about who you become. And that's really what this is about. You're going to make a plan, but make a plan B, the BEB, about what you want to become. And what you do, it will take care of itself. So I hope that was helpful. In the next episode, we'll try to wrap it up, hit the key points in each of these 9 episodes, and try to conclude on a high note for everyone, inspiring you to follow through, then find your true self and love that true self, for it's divine. Thanks so much. Please like and subscribe. Send me a message, comment down below. I'd love to hear from you, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.